as someone who worked in New York politics, I would love to get your reaction. New York City Mayor Eric Adams' administration has found itself in the midst of multiple federal investigations. There have been federal searches on multiple NYC officials. The NYPD commissioner and Mayor Eric Adams' chief counsel both resigned. What's your reaction to that news?
Look, I have a lot of really close friends that work in that administration. And as a New Yorker, first and foremost, I want Eric Adams to succeed because if he succeeds, the city does well. There's no sugarcoating how bad this is. From a political standpoint, there's the political standpoint, governmental standpoint, and the legal standpoint. From the political standpoint, Eric Adams was already polling, in the upper 20s as of a couple of months ago, the last time they did citywide polling. So he starts without a real base of support while he's sort of weathering this storm. So politically, this is very bad for him. He's at a point now where he's got a number of people who've thrown their hat in the ring to challenge him in 2025 for his mayoralty. People talk about how de Blasio was such a train wreck. De Blasio never faced a significant challenger in his primary when he was running for re-election. So already we're seeing a totally different dynamic sort of take hold. So that's the political side. Governmentally, when these investigations are closing in the way that they are, where you've got 4 different federal investigations into City Hall alone on a whole range of issues, to say nothing for the police department. As someone who's worked at the highest levels of government, where my mind goes is, how is it functioning? How are decisions getting made? How are you able to move the ball forward? Are things getting bottlenecked? Are things not getting done? Can people really truly focus? And so from a governmental perspective, it's, concerning as a taxpayer, as a resident. And the question for, Eric Adams and what he needs to do while he's facing this is, how do I show the people that the city is not being impacted by this? And then legally speaking, it's just all pointing to this is not well. And who it touches and how far reaching it goes, how high up it goes, that remains to be seen. Everyone should be afforded due process. And jumping the gun is not something that I urge people to do. But there is a certain amount of reality. The bar is incredibly high to get search warrants. They got search warrants on a number of his top aides, his closest aides in City Hall, the police commissioner. Now the police commissioner has resigned. His top counsel, Lisa Zornberg, who used to be the head of the criminal division for the Southern District of New York, late night resignation on Saturday was sort of an earthquake shaking the New York political world. Everyone's sort of guessing what does that mean. And so, again, I don't want to speculate on where it's going to go, but it certainly doesn't look good.
To your point, everyone is guessing where that leads, and we don't know where exactly yet as we sit here today, Monday afternoon. But how does Mayor Adams inspire confidence and lead in spite of all of this?
Look, one of the stories I just read was that his counsel resigned because she had recommended that he fire a number of people who it looks like are blatantly caught up in some very questionable behavior. And questionable, I'm using as very, toned down word, potentially illegal, city for sale type stuff, and that he's not taking her advice. And it took, a week to get the police commissioner to resign. And you had the New York Post, who has sort of been Eric Adams' #1 backer and supporter, saying the police commissioner's got to go. I think he's got to rid himself of some of this baggage. And this is not about a loyalty test right now. This is what I was just saying. Can the city function? Can the police department function? And I would argue that people who are having their homes raided, it's really difficult that they go to their job and, perform the way that they need to in those jobs, which are 24-hour-a-day, highly demanded positions. I would say at a certain point, you should ask for a few resignations. You've got to be out doing 2, 3, 4 events a day, showing the public that you're working for them, delivering actual results, not just giving speeches. And I would sit down and do interviews. Because at a certain point, you've got to start talking to the press, because the void and the vacuum that is left just leaves everyone guessing, and then it brings everything to a worse place. So that's what I think he needs to be doing.
Do you think there's going to be a point now or in the future where he should step down?
That's not something for me to say. I mean, this will be, I think that he would have to make that decision on his own if he feels he can no longer effectively govern. At the end of the day, we are people that serve in positions in public service. Those positions are not yours forever. You are not entitled to those positions. You are put in a place of power in order to put the public over yourself. If there comes a point where he can no longer effectively serve and he looks himself in the mirror and acknowledges that, that would be, what his decision is. But I think that it's premature to speculate about that at this point. And I also think at a certain point, the feds have got to move. It's what they've allowed to spill out into the public has made it impossible for City Hall and for the NYPD to function. So at this point, either say you've done the investigation and there's no there, and allow everybody to move on without this cloud over their head, or start to arrest people and put together the case and show the public what it is that's going on so people can start to make decisions. Because this has now been almost a year of this. And I think it's reached a point of not being tenable.
I know you said earlier that there are some names being tossed around to primary the mayor. One of those names that have been thrown out potentially to run is former Governor Andrew Cuomo. What do you think about that?
Listen, it's funny you mentioned it. My phone has been ringing off the hook the last, couple of days with people saying he's got to run, he's got to run, he's got to run. We need an adult. He knows how to manage things. He built LaGuardia. He did gay marriage. He got the world through COVID. He certainly is hearing from a lot of people, and the people close to him are hearing from a lot of people. I think that we've seen in polls that have been done publicly in the last 6 to 8 months that he would be the immediate front runner. He still maintains a massive well of support in New York City from New York City voters, despite how the administration ended. And so, that'll be a decision he has to make with his family. He's publicly said, this is something, he doesn't want to weigh in on until the picture gets a little bit clearer. He does have a nice relationship with the current mayor and has respect for him. So I think that, that remains to be seen. But there are certainly a lot of people pushing him too.